Hello, friends and fellow flute enthusiasts, and thanks so much for tuning in. Today, I'm really excited to talk about this really cool little beast of a flute. We're going to dive into all the different things that it might possibly do, and then some things I like about this flute, and just really excited to share. This is a flute made by Dustin Selva of Elemental Flutes. It's made from purple heart, which is why I called it a little beast. It does have a little bit of weight to it, as purple heart does, compared to, say, a cedar flute, for example. And then there's just some more. There's more to this flute, which adds a little bit of weight to it. But I also want to talk about some things that I love about this flute. Before we get into playing all the different components and all the different ways, let's talk about some things that I really love about what Dustin's doing with the craftsmanship here. Number one, when we talk about drone flutes, multi-chambered flutes, mouthpieces are really important. And you can see here that he has a mouthpiece. You can see this middle one. I'll hold it against my shirt so you can see the contrast. The middle one here is more pronounced, and that's our main. Actually, that's not our main flute. That's our one of our drone flutes. And then on this side and the other side, these two are more recessed. And this helps us when we kind of choose these two or these two. And even if we play all three together, I don't feel like this protrusion here is too much, because Dustin has been very intentional about bringing these embouchure holes very close together. And sometimes when they're too close together, we get little whistles, like if you are trying to exclude one of the barrels. Say you're playing just the solo flute and you want to exclude one of the flutes. We can sometimes get a little whistle or hiss coming out the corner of our mouth going into that particular one. But because he set this up in a way where we've got these definite tiers here for the mouthpieces, this really helps eliminate that hiss. I really like that, because sometimes you can't control it, and when you're in the middle of recording, it's that one thing that you have to go back and change. So this helps, for me personally, eliminate some of that, because I know that I'm either in it, on it, or off completely, and I'm not going to get that leak. The other thing is the separate blocks. I really like this design in a triple and double flute, because it gives me greater opportunity to fine tune things independently. If this was one block to do the work and carry the load for all three flutes here, then what I would end up with is having to sacrifice something. One block, you can twist it this way or twist it that way a little bit. But that middle one, if you need to fine tune that one, it's kind of like, well, you're going to sacrifice the voicing of one of these others just to get that one in. So really love that they're independent and they can move freely from each other. The next thing is, well, two things. The plugs that are tied together, they have this string, so as I remove them, they can dangle here, and I don't lose them. I've done that on occasion. So I love that these are all tied together. And the other thing that's more particular about this flute is that it might be hard to see in this video, I'm not sure. But when looking and playing this flute, the holes of this main flute, this larger flute, are on the top of the flute. And that's good. But the ones on this smaller flute are kind of pushed off to the side just a little bit, not completely on the side. They're not straight up and centered with the flute. And there are grooves with each hole. And as I was playing this flute, well, when I first got it, I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. Why? And as I started to play the flute and I got more comfortable with it, I really started to love this feature, because it makes it so much easier and more comfortable. Also, on the back of this flute, there's a little groove in the back of this. Maybe you can see the sheen and shine here, where there's a little groove running down the barrel of this flute. And that really helps if you're over here playing just this flute, wherever your thumbs are kind of naturally landing, it's finding that groove in there. And I can also, if I'm playing this particular flute, it gives me another little gripping point. And I bring these things up because I feel like they're very intentional from Dustin in how he's not only making the flute, but playing the flute. And that's one of the benefits that makers have as they play their flute. They're able to shape it to be comfortable for the player themselves or the person receiving the flute on the other end. So I wanted to bring up these little things about crafting of the flute. Oh, and one other thing I thought about, the chimney here on the flute is nice because there's less of a chance that the wind, if you're playing outside, there's less of a chance that the wind is going to steal the voice of the flute from you. It's just a little, especially that they're recessed in these little channels here, and they're recessed back with this chimney in each one of the blocks here. Bonus points here. Good job, Dustin. Really appreciate that. So, you probably had enough of me chit-chatting. Jonny, what does the flute sound like? So let's get into that. The sound of this flute. So what we have, I'll tell you about the setup here. Because every triple flute is a little different. You can set them up. In this case, we have a mid G flute here, a full 6-hole flute. We have a G drone here with 3 holes, the bottom 3 holes of a G flute. So we can either play these as melody, or we can unplug or plug different holes to create sustaining harmony. And then over on this side, the smaller flute here, so where it's cut off here, this is in the key of D. I didn't remember all of that to begin with. I'm fortunate that Dustin put all of that back here. He has put here elemental flutes, key of G, G, D, and then the number of flute that it is. So this one's in 440. Dustin also makes flutes in 432, and I believe he might take requests for other frequencies of flutes if it's something special that you're looking for. So let's get into the sound. I do have my reverb pedal below, but I'll play it dry for you so you can get an idea of what it sounds like in my room. And just as a caveat, I have little puppies in the house that love to howl along with. So if you hear puppies starting howling, that's a benefit, and maybe another harmony that we're adding. We'll see how good that they are with harmonizing. So let's go. This is the G melody flute. I'm going to add that middle one, so G drone. Now let's hear the high one. This is in the key of high D. Really sweet sound on that high D flute. So let's talk about some different things that you can do with this. Maybe we approach this as just a regular drone at first. So I can remove all of these plugs on this side. So we have 3 holes open here. And I can play. I'm not really great at playing with right hand on top. So what I'm going to do here is going to look a little confusing. but I'm going to take my right hand and put over this barrel. So I'm playing these still with my bottom hand, and these I'm reaching over and playing with the top. So I'm covering up quite a bit of the flute here, but maybe you can still see if I play it this way, it can be a little bit of a challenge for me. I'm not willing to do that on a video just yet. So that's one way to approach it. You could also keep one of these plugged in, okay? And that gives us a fourth of G. Same note there. Or if you cover up and leave the bottom one open here, that gives us the third. Got a little interference there. And then of course, we can keep those closed. But let's take them all off again, and let's look at something else you can do with something like this. So with the bottom three of this middle drone uncovered, it gives us the note of D, which is the fifth of G. And this one, this little flute over here, happens to be in the key of D. So now with those three open, we can now have a high D drone, essentially. Okay, so as you can see, there are lots of different options that you have here. I won't go into full detail with all of these different things, but I just wanted to kind of give you a preview of what a triple flute setup like this is, and a triple flute made by Dustin Selva of Elemental Flutes. I didn't do any reverb on this one, but I'll create a couple of YouTube shorts with this flute where you can hear some examples of me playing in those different ways with the pretty reverb on it. If you're interested in a flute like this or any flute from Dustin, I've included his website below, as well as a little coupon for you to incentivize you if you want to add one of his flutes to your collection. Look for that in the description below. Also, if you're interested in learning more about flutes like this, double flutes, triple flutes, multi-chambered flutes, oddly tuned flutes, any flute for that matter, we've got lots of courses and content on horizonsfluteschool.com. We have both a la carte courses that you can take, purchase and take. We also have a thriving membership where you get access to courses, Q&A, flute circles, lesson modules, and workshops, monthly workshops there as well. So check that out. I'll also leave a link in the description for that. I want to give a shout out to Dustin Selva at Elemental Flutes. Thank you for letting me play with these flutes. I have several from Dustin, and it's just a lot of fun to experiment and play. So thank you, buddy, for extending this to me and letting me share it with all of you out there. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope to see you in another video very soon. If you have any questions about flutes, about learning, anything like that, you're welcome to drop a comment below, or you can reach out to me through my website, JonnyLipfordmusic.com. We'll see you again very soon.